Hi, this is Ken Sanford with SASIETS, Econometrics and Time Series. Today I'd like to take some time and talk with you about some of the features in ETS that are surfaceable through Enterprise Guide. The first thing that we need to understand about time series data is that time-stamped data are not necessarily time series data. We'll talk about the difference and how we can go about converting these transaction-level data into time series data. Then we'll take a look at some of the features in Enterprise Guide and SASIETS that help with this sort of data aggregation. Further, SASIETS has several procedures expressly designed for time series data manipulation. Remember, the time dimension is how you get big data. We've always been collecting information on our customers. Now we're collecting information on our customers over time, and we have to figure out a way to deal with this time dimension. So what is the difference between time-stamped and time series data? So you can take a look at the two data sets that I have on the screen. And on the left, we have a time-stamped transaction that says one basketball was sold in store 448 on March 26th. But we also have 3 additional basketballs that were sold on March 26th at a different time. In order to actually do anything with these data, we need to get a representation of how many basketballs in total were sold in store 448 or store 49 in a given day. And so our objective today is to take our data from the left and turn it into the right. These data are often irregularly spaced, have a lot of noise, and are too granular to do anything with. Analysts cannot forecast or really even report with data in this form. Where might we find these transaction-level data? Well, web analytic data come in this form. How many web hits on a site in a given time? Potentially you have an IP address on the individual. And so in order to make sense of the data, what we need to do is collapse it in some form. As we've already seen, there is retail data that is based on transaction history, which could be by the client, by the store, by the unit. This could also come in the form of loyalty card data. So say I wanted to know all of the aggregate purchases by a given customer over time. In manufacturing data, we have time to completion. In financial services, ATM transactions, deposits, withdrawals, credit card purchases, all come in an atomistic, granular form that need to be converted into a time series in order to do analysis. In government, tax revenue collections by taxpayer. Again, often we need to take the data up into a more aggregate level to do forecasting. In utilities, we often have usage per minute. And over time, again, data collection practices are making this more of a problem, not less of one. Adding to the complexity, oftentimes we need to create a hierarchical time series. That means not only do we want information based on a more uniform interval of time, we also need to make the categorization of unit types, store numbers, and those sorts of things. SASIETS and Enterprise Guide has a point-and-click way to do this hierarchical time series. Why would we bother doing this? Well, one of the reasons might be we want to decompose our time series into certain attributes. For instance, from the initial data, we might want to pull out a trend. We might want to extract the seasonality. So often in retail data around Christmas time, there are peaks and valleys in other times of the year. There may be some underlying cycles, such as a recession. And finally, when we add all of these components back together, we might be able to forecast future values based on past trends. So where might we find this in Enterprise Guide? Under Tasks, there's a time series node that has Create Time Series Data. Then we need to specify what level of aggregation we would like to have. We also want to know what statistic we're looking for. And again, the end goal is to go from data on the left to something more aggregate, data on the right. So let's open the same atomistic data set in Enterprise Guide. You can see that we have a transaction ID, a date value, which is at the day level, but we also have a transaction timestamp. We know what store the transaction came from, and we know what was sold. How would I go about using this information? Again, under Tasks and then Time Series, there's an option to create time series data. The first step is to make sure the data set is active in the window, and we can see that it has. Enterprise Guide fills in much of this information for you. We need to define a time ID. In this case, we have a date-time variable. And we're interested in counting the total quantity of units sold. We also want to create some by groups. So we want to know the total number of units sold by store and by product. Now we want to determine what level of collapsing we would like to do. So we have date time down to the second, I believe. So what we need to do is take that date time to the month level in order to do monthly analysis. We could take it to the quarterly level to do quarterly analysis, or even the yearly level. So right now, let's go with a month. We treat our missing value as missing, so there are options here. If instead of looking at the total, we'd like to look at the average transaction size, the minimum or the maximum, or any other option. Finally, we have an option to ask for a time series graph. I'm going to turn that on. Enterprise Guide returns us the results of the time series procedure. What this means is we've taken our data collapsed by store value and product value. The time series procedure tells us when the first observation was, when the last observation was, and how many observations applied in this time. And because I asked for it, we have a chart of monthly total, in this case, basketballs sold in store 49. With the output data set, you can see that we went from something very granular, where we had multiple observations per day, to now one observation, which is the total count of basketballs sold in store 49 in a given month. For those of you out there that are the more advanced time series ETS user, we provide access via syntax to several time series data manipulation tools. These time series data manipulation tools can accumulate time series data, do seasonal decompositions, provide us information on autocorrelation, and also give us some output in graphical, tabular, and even in a SAS dataset form. The basic syntax for PROC time series is as follows. Looks similar to many of the other time series procedures offered by SAS. In fact, the demo you just saw in Enterprise Guide was creating PROC time series code under the covers. A new tool in SASIETS is the time data procedure. It efficiently differences, detrends, deseasonalizes, and performs other time series data management functions. What makes the time data procedure very unique is that it is extensible with the FCMP language, which means you can add your own functions and call your own functions inside of the time data procedure. The general form is given below. So, for example, let's say I wanted to count the number of people in a household and then merge that number with the observation. So in this simple toy data set that you see, we have for household 1, 2 people, persons 1 and 2. This might apply if you're working with census summary file data. In household 2, we have 2 people. In household 3, we have 1. In household 4, we actually have 3 people. And so my objective here is to create a new variable that is the count of the number of people in every household. So using this syntax that you see over on the left-hand side of the screen, With one pass through the data, we would generate a new variable that is the count of the number of people in this given household. This could be very useful if you have microdata on the on the income of the people in a household, and you want to append or merge the average value of the household income to that individual's record. Again, this is very high performance. It allows you to program your own functions. Very efficient way to do time series data manipulation. So these are just a few of the many time series data aggregation tools offered by SASIETS. For more information, please visit support.sas.com/ETS. Thank you.